or muted
support questions. So this is all what these webinars are for. They are for active customer partners only. So what this webinar, and we're doing it through, of course, a platform called GoToMeeting. All of you, I did a quick introduction earlier, but the webinar basics, all of you who've dialed in, whether you've dialed in via your computer audio or your phone call or your direct phone line with a conference call number, you are in listen-only mode. So if you're speaking or asking questions, we won't be able to hear you. We're not ignoring you. We're going to be muting all of the attendees too, so if you come on and can mute yourself, that would be helpful. If not, we'll go ahead and mute you as organizers. There is a chat box in GoToMeeting, which some of you have actually already started putting some questions in. Feel free to ask questions during the webinar. What I would encourage is that you hold off till the end of the webinar to answer or to ask any questions, because likely the webinar will answer those by the end of the webinar. If you still have questions, go ahead and post them to the chat box, and we'll have Terry Crouch, who's on as an organizer here with AccuZIP. He'll be monitoring those questions, and he can post them to Eric. At the end, he'll talk to Eric and say, you know, we've got so-and-so has this question, can you please answer it? If we don't have time, we're trying to keep the webinar to an hour. You are free to ask those additional questions via email. Send an email to support@accuzip.com. This is important. Make sure that the subject says AccuZIP mid-application and migration webinar. That way it gets funneled to the correct people and support staff to answer those questions. We'll also be posting a one-sheet on our webinars page of questions and answers, which we do post each webinar. And that'll be up there, so you can just kind of have a summary sheet of that. A couple of you have asked, yes, as with all webinars, the webinar is being recorded, and so it will be posted to our website for future viewing. So if you have other team members or you need to leave early, anything like that, it will be recorded. And as I mentioned, this webinar and future webinars, as well as archived webinars, are all at accuzip.com/webinars. So Eric, if you want to go to the next slide, please.
I'd be delighted. There it is.
Okay, so today's presenter we have here, of course, you've just heard his voice, and I'm sure many of you have spoken to Eric throughout the 25-year tenure that he's been at AccuZIP. I'll read his official bio. Eric Lambeth is the Technical Support Director, Website Coordinator, and Product Specialist at AccuZIP. He's been serving customers in the Technical Support Department of AccuZIP for over 25 years. Utilizing his passion for helping businesses solve issues and perform jobs more efficiently, Eric oversees the Technical Support Department of AccuZIP, ensuring that support is available in a variety of convenient methods during office hours and while closed. He's also responsible for our AccuZIP.com website and is a product specialist in all of our AccuZIP products and services. So he really is an expert in all things AccuZIP. Eric's a native Californian and spends his free time coaching youth basketball, getting to the beach as much as possible, and spending time with his 3 young children, and passionately rooting for the Pittsburgh sports teams. So there is Eric.
Yeah. And Eric doesn't like to shave very often, as you see that. As you see there. Not very well.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so with that said, that's my introduction. So again, and most importantly, I want to say thank you. So thank you for taking the time to educate yourself, be proactive, and be on this webinar with us today. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and let Eric and Terry take it from here.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, that sounds much better than I would have done it. So this webinar is for those of you who subscribe to the AccuTrace IM Barcode Tracking service and currently don't use your own mailer ID in those intelligent mail barcodes. So if you do use your own mailer ID, this webinar doesn't really apply to you, but feel free to stick around and enjoy the entertainment. All right, so what is a mailer ID if you're not sure? That is a field within the IM barcode that's used to identify the mailer, and MIDs are assigned by the USPS to the mail owner. You'll either have a 6-digit mailer ID if you mail over 10 million pieces a year, or a 9-digit mailer ID, or a collection of mailer IDs if you don't. All right. Now, why is this important? The mailer ID can be owned by the mail owner, service provider, any stakeholder in the supply chain, and USPS is requesting that we migrate our users from the 201.108 and 201.109 mailer IDs that you may currently be using to your own. It's going to be very easy and painless to do this. We're going to show you how to do this today. But a really good reason to do this, aside from, or in addition to the fact that it's identifying you as the mail owner, big thing about this is it has to do with mail scorecard errors. So it stands to reason if you have multiple companies using the mailer ID that we issue when you get AccuTrace, that if you go outside of your serial number range that we assign to you, or somebody else goes outside of this serial range that we assign to them, that there is a potential for mail piece barcode uniqueness errors. In addition to that, there's a chance for tray barcode, container barcode, tray and sack barcode uniqueness errors. So we want to avoid that, and the best way, again, to avoid that is by using your own mailer ID. Using your own mailer ID in those intelligent mail barcodes. And as you can see from this PowerPoint slide, the mailer ID service enables you to do many different things. So there are a lot of good benefits by using your own mailer ID. All right, as we move on. So what are we going to do today? We are requiring that all users of AccuTrace start using your own mailer ID. Most likely you already have one. I'm going to show you how to get one if you don't already, okay? So we're going to look at signing up for a mailer ID with the USPS if you haven't already done so. If you have done so, you're not sure what your mailer ID is, I'm going to show you how to find it. And then we'll go over now when you sign up in order to migrate to your own mailer ID, in order to use your own mailer ID with AccuTrace, there is a form to fill out from the Informed Visibility Department of the USPS. We're going to provide you with that form, and I'm going to show you how to fill that out. You'll return that form to us, and then we will let you know when you can start using your mailer ID with AccuTrace. And usually that takes only about 20 minutes or so. It takes you about 2 minutes to fill out the form. It takes about 20 minutes to get that form or to get that delegation in effect. All right, so let's quickly, and then we're going to go into the AccuZIP 6 program, and I'll show you how to enter your own mailer ID. Change the AccuZIP mailer ID to your own mailer ID, so it starts working with AccuZIP 6. And incidentally, outside of it, now this webinar is being recorded, but if you ever need tech support with any of this, you can certainly contact our support department, which is available from 8 to 7 Eastern time in a variety of different methods. So let's quickly look at that report. Just happen to have it up here. So this is the report that you're going to be filling out. And I'll just briefly go through this, and we're going to go back to this in just a moment, but I want to give you an overview of what you're looking at. So with this Informed Visibility Data Delegation Request Form, you're going to simply put your company name here. Ours will already be right there, and you'll throw your company name in there again. So the two things that you'll need to know, because you already know your name and address and phone number and all that, you're going to need to know your CRID, and you'll need to know your mailer ID. And we have slots here for up to 9 mailer IDs. So if you have a gaggle of mailer IDs that you'd like to have their scans pushed to AccuTrace, you can fill those out there, and then you just sign the form at the bottom here, send the form to this email address. But so the mailer ID and the CRID are things that you need to find out. So how do you get these items here? Let me see. Here we go. So let's go back to here. So we're going to go here in just a minute, but how do we get to that information? Let's go. If you want to follow along with me, I'm going to open up my browser to the Business Customer Gateway website. That's at gateway.usps.com. So if you have a second screen or you have ability to bring up your browser while still enjoying this webinar, go ahead and do that and log into the Business Customer Gateway site. Now, if you don't have a login, it's very simple. You just hit sign up. It's going to ask you for your name, company information, address information, answer a security question or 3, and then immediately it's going to give you a mailer ID and a CRID. If you've already gotten this far, you'll simply hit sign in. How on earth is that possible? Hold on a minute. Let me try this again. Oh boy. Well, I'm apparently not gonna show you that. This apparently got changed as recently as this morning. Okay, now let's go on to the next one.
Eric, let me see. So, let me privately send that over to you.
Okay, thank you. In the meantime, while you're still playing with your web browser, let's go to this address because I want you to download this form at this point. See if you can see this big enough. AccuZIP.com/AccuTrace/IV.pdf. So again, in your browser, let's go ahead and go to that form. And let's see here. Kristen, thank you. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Kristen. Apologize for the technical difficulties. Let's go back here. Okay, what on earth? I'm going to reset. I'm going to refresh the page. Matter of fact, I'm just going to refresh the page. All right, so we're going to go here. I will paste this in, sign in. There we go. Okay, so we're logged into the Business Customer Gateway. Good thing I didn't log in incorrectly too many times. Would have been locked out for the day. To find your CRID and your mailer ID, it's just in the navigation, the left-hand side navigation, simply going to click Manage Account. So click on that. Here's your CRID, right underneath Home Business Location. And then to view your mailer IDs, you just click on this View Mailer IDs link and it'll show you those MIDs. So again, let's go back to this form that you have successfully downloaded. And again, you're going to put your company name there. AccuZIP Inc. is already in that spot. I filled that out for you. Fill your company name in there again. Put your CRID in there that you just found from that Business Customer Gateway site. Name, address, phone, email address, and then all the way down here, fill in your mailer ID. If you have multiple mailer IDs that you'll be using, go ahead and put in multiple mailer IDs there. Sign it, your job title, you can make something up if you like, and then go ahead and email that finished form to iv@accuzip.com. And then we will communicate with you once you've completed that form. We're going to communicate with you on when you're ready to start using your mailer ID in your barcodes. All right, so that is the mailer ID application process. All right, and I think that was pretty easy. Terry, do you think that was well explained?
Yeah, yeah, and the turnaround is pretty quick. It depends on the load at the IV department, of course. So for submitting hundreds at once, it might take a little longer than 20 minutes, but I've never seen it take longer than 1 business day, and that's when people submit a lot of them in a single form. And the other part of that is that the CRID, if known, the USPS, the IV department will look up your company name, even if you put the wrong CRID. So don't get hung up on what the CRID is when you're filling out the form, because they can find it as long as your company name does own the mailer ID you're submitting.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. All right. Where am I going now? Oh, I meant to click here. So, all right. So now that you have completed the form, or that you will complete the form and submit that to us, again, we'll communicate to you when you're going to be ready to start using your own mailer ID within your barcodes. Now, if you don't have the AccuZIP 6 program, you're missing out. But at least at that point that we communicate that with you, you'll be ready to use your own mailer ID in whatever system you're using. The service type obviously doesn't need to change because you're already using a tracking service type. But we're going to go over those things right now. What happens when we communicate to you? How do we get this to work in the AccuZIP program? So we're going to now do what it says on the screen. I'm going to quickly move to the AccuZIP program. There it is. All right. So for those of you who don't have AccuZIP, you'll be able to enjoy looking at a mailing software that's probably more powerful than the one you're currently using. In the pre-sort setup window, everybody should know how to get here. Pre-sort setup window, we have this intelligent mail setup link that you'll click on. And now if you don't want to go by that means, you could always go into Additions menu to AccuTrace and go to Intelligent Mail Setup. Okay, and it brings us into this IM information setup window. I'll just kind of move it up here. So I will expand first class here. And so at the beginning, once upon a time, you probably had a mailer ID that looks something like this. So to change the mailer ID, you're simply going to click on that to get it darkened. Click on it again to highlight, and then type in your mailer ID. Please do not use the mailer ID that I'm typing in. I'm putting in a phony mailer ID. I have no idea who this belongs to. There we go, and it's locked in. If you want to double check your service type, just double click on the service type number. Service types we're looking for tracking, we're going to say IMB tracing. So like this one that has the number 270 that I selected, it's a full service type that includes IMB tracing. We definitely do not want one that says no IMB tracing. You will not get scan data reported to AccuTrace if you select a service type that says no IMB tracing. So make sure it says IMB tracing there. Do the same thing with service type basic as well. Just double click on that thing, come down to your service type, make sure it's IMB tracing, and hit OK. I'm going to collapse that. I'll expand the standard mail. Again, do the same thing. So again, if your mailer ID used to be, something like this, used to be that, then again, click on it, darkens it, click on it again, highlights it, put in your mailer ID, your favorite one, hit enter on the keyboard. Don't hit OK, hit enter on the keyboard to lock it in. Then again, choose a service type that says IMB tracing. If you have any of these extra services, these ACS services, go for it. Otherwise, if you don't, just choose one of these. I recommend 271, so you can do full service mailings and IMB tracing for that one. And then 311 is your just your IMB tracing without full service. Okay, so that's really, I mean, that's all there is to it. And we hit OK here. And do you want to save your changes? Of course I do. So I'll hit yes. And there we go. Let's go back to our PowerPoint here for a second. Oops, over here. Oops, wrong one. Wrong slide. I'm having a lot of success here. Here we go. Okay, moving on. So now that we have that all set up, now we have your AccuZIP set up, you're ready to start performing pre-sorts. All right, and how do we check that the correct mailer ID and correct service type are part of your barcode? Well, once you have pre-sorted your list and you get into the print pre-sort window, you'll hit the print labels button, and then in the database view, and I'll show you that in a second, you're going to see this IMB digits field. Well, that is after let me correct myself there before Terry yells at me. As you advance past the print settings window, it'll create this IMB digits field, and it will populate it with service type, mailer ID, serial number, and so forth. So as you're looking at this IMB digits, I kind of blew it up here. What you see in red here is your service type. What you see in green here is your mailer ID. So does that mailer ID show 201-108 or 201-109? If it does, then we need to pre-sort again. It should show your mailer ID and that correct IM barcode tracking service type. Also a good recommendation, I recommend when you print your piece to scan the barcode. I like to use the app on my phone called Barcode Scanner, made by AccuSoft, no relation. That thing seems to work very well, and when you scan your barcode, the end result is a long slew of numbers, 31 digits that give you essentially all of this. So again, the first 2 digits are the barcode ID, you can ignore that. Next 3 are the service type, is that a tracking service type? And then the next 6 to 9 digits would be, depending on if you mail over 10 million pieces a year or not. Next 6 to 9 will be your mailer ID. Is that your mailer ID in there? So looking back at AccuZIP for a second, let me go back to my print pre-sort window. Here's a pre-sort that's already been performed. So I'll hit print labels, and here's where we would upload to AccuTrace. Let me get this screen a little, there we go. Here's where we would upload to AccuTrace. And if we hit continue, it's going to generate my IM barcode information. I've already hit continue previously. during my prep for this webinar. So here we are. So again, as you can see here in this database view at the bottom, it's showing my my service type here and my mailer ID. Again, make sure these are yours. Also, when you scan that mail piece, it shows you the serial number. After the mailer ID is the serial number. Does the serial number on your printed piece match what you see in this IMB digits field? If it doesn't, then your pre-sort doesn't match what you printed. Maybe you pre-sorted a couple of times. Make sure that when you upload to AccuTrace, you're uploading a pre-sort that matches the barcode on your printed piece. All right, let's go back to my PowerPoint, my colorful Christmassy PowerPoint presentation. Do I have anything left?
And if I could interject, there for just a second. For
Mm-hmm.
the serial numbers that he's talking about there, the important part to understand is that if you pre-sort and you are continuing past the print settings window to generate those serial numbers, if you then reuse that pre-sort, so you open it back up later, maybe you go do some work and you open the same pre-sort using the file menu with print pre-sort, it will always match. Where you get into trouble is if you pre-sort again from sort and pre-sort mail. If you do that, your serial numbers will change. So when you're dealing with AccuTrace and you're uploading to AccuTrace, you want to make sure that you are uploading that same pre-sort folder. You are not re-pre-sorting, and that's what Eric's getting at there.
Excellently explained. Thank you, Terry. All right. So as our final review, this has been very quick. It's only a little 30-minute webinar. You'll be able to get back to work shortly. Final review, check to see that you are already using your own mailer ID. And again, in that print settings window, you'll be able to easily find out if you're using your mailer ID instead of the one we issued you. If you don't have a mailer ID, go ahead and get one from gateway.usps.com. Very easy to sign up for one. It takes only a few minutes, and you instantly get issued a CRID and mailer ID. Remember to complete that informed visibility tracking delegation form. Make sure you complete this and send it to iv@accuzip.com. And there you go. So, and then make sure after you send us that form, wait for us to reply back to you. Promise you'll get that reply. And then you can start taking steps to add your mailer ID into AccuZIP 6. And again, if you have any questions, any doubts about how to do this, contact our support line or email me or email Terry over there, support@accuzip.com. Support is easy to get. You can hit this little chat button. You can call us up. You can send us an email. Okay, and I think that is that it? I believe that is it. We have references. There you go. So if you want to learn more about the mailer ID, if you want to learn more about the USPS, there you are. Click on those helpful links. Terry, anything to add as I put you on the spot?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. One I answered privately to Emily D, but she was asking, is there a way to check if you're already using your own MID? And for that, as you were demoing, when you go up to Additions, AccuTrace, Intelligent Mail Setup, when you're going into the mailer ID under any class of mail, which Eric's going to do now, if this mailer ID is anything other than 201108, 201109, or 201110, then you are using your own mailer ID because those are the ones that would be populated by us. Now, one of the things you also want to make note, if you're changing your mailer ID here, the serial number range depends on whether it's a 6 or a 9-digit mailer ID. So if you're going from a 6 to a 9-digit, your serial number used to be 9 digits in length down at the bottom, and it will increase or decrease to 6 digits because if you're a large volume mailer, then you have a 9-digit mailer ID and you only get 6-digit serials. So I don't want to go down a rabbit hole too deep on this, but when you're changing that, you can tell if it's your own mailer ID simply by looking at what's in that mailer ID block.
Very good. Excellent.
And
any more? Oh, go ahead.
Yep. There's a few more coming in. So Sydney wants to know if you're using multiple mailer IDs, can you enter them additionally into AccuZIP? So I don't know if you want to cover that one or if you want me to.
Go ahead. Let's see if you have an elegant way of what your elegant way is of doing that one.
I don't. The elegant way would be email me and I'll explain it. but unfortunately, there is not an integrated solution right now. It's something that we're definitely looking at because right now, whatever configuration you have, that's the default. Now you can see things in this window that say use mailer ID from field. And in Eric's case, he's got an appropriately named mailer ID field. You can run what we call commands or fill that field with the mailer ID you want to use. So this can be a per job modification that you can do. And then we'll use that to populate the piece level barcodes. What it won't do is populate your tray tags and your pallet cards and things like that with that mailer ID, because you could have comminglers that populate that field with 20 different mailer IDs. So that always comes from the configuration. It is something that we're looking at. I'm not confirming that we will add it, but it is definitely something I want to add to where we can have a drop down that you can select which mailer ID this job belongs to. So it's something that we're looking at, but unfortunately I can't guarantee its inclusion yet.
Yeah, I'd say if you're going to be emailing that question or that request, also include in that email the reasons why you want to do it, the reasons why this is appropriate. It could be a situation where you may still want to use your own mailer ID. So it might be overkill to try to use multiple ones, might or might not. So inform us of the situation in which you'd like to do this, and then we'll come up with the best, most efficient solution for you.
Okay, and Christopher Michaels, there's a couple of these that I definitely want to hit since we got some extra time too. Christopher Michaels asking, we have multiple seats. If one seat is switched over to using our mailer ID before the others, will this cause any problems? The short answer is no, because if you switch one over from our mailer ID to your mailer ID, and that machine is in its own little bubble, and it's the only machine using that mailer ID, then you're fine. You have no conflicts. However, if you start switching machines over together, you want to use right up at the top of this configuration window, there's a shared IM barcode serial number path. What you will do is point this to a UNC path, that's a universal network path, like you see the // and the identification of a machine, or a mapped network drive, so that you can all point to the same configuration file. So you can have 5 or 10 machines, or however many you have, all pulling serial numbers from the same configuration file. Now, this is, again, something that I will be happy to go over if you want to email me, or I can explain how this all works. It's probably going to go a little bit off the deep end for this, but you can tie everything together to use one, and you will want to do that if you're using multiple instances or multiple seats. For just switching them over, like as a test, that will not interfere with any of your other machines, because the serial number range and the pool it pulls from is unique to the mailer ID you have chosen. So if you change that mailer ID, we write a configuration file for that mailer ID and we start tracking on that machine. But I'd be happy to detail that more via email.
There you go. Ricardo asks, since I know I'm using my own mailer ID, do I still have to fill up the IV form? No. If you're already using your mailer ID, if you're already using your own mailer ID, then you're all set. So you're good to go, Ricardo, and everybody else with the same question. Let's see, what else do we have here, Terry?
They're coming in kind of quick now.
Does that go through, Eric, quick question, do you want to clarify if they're using AccuTrace, if they need to fill out the IV form if they're using their own MID?
Well, okay, the assumption there is that they're already, they're already using the AccuTrace service, right? And I guess, Ricardo, you can clarify on this, or anybody else. If you're here because you're using the AccuTrace service and your own mailer ID. So if you're using your own mailer ID, then this step should have already been completed at some point. Terry, even before, correct me if I'm wrong here, but even before now every AccuTrace user, every new AccuTrace user gets that new IV form as they sign up. I believe when Informed Visibility began, we automatically, for those who already use their mailer ID, we already migrated them over. So So the short answer is, if you're getting scans with your own mailer ID, you're good to go, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah,
and if you switch, if you're switching
that's
from,
the short answer.
if you, and I just want to clarify just to make sure that with support. So if you're currently using AccuTrace with an AccuZIP mailer ID, even if you have your own mailer ID, you've already signed up for it. If you start using your own mailer ID for tracking, which is what you're needing to do, and you have not filled out that form, then yes, you do need to fill out that form. And if you have a question, you can email that to iv@accuzip.com, and we can see if we're receiving scans for your MID.
Right. Yeah.
Now, reading through, Darren Marks has a couple of good questions. It might be better for me to address it via email or specifically, but as far as MIDs in the mailer, we are an agency, so if the mail shop creates a scorecard error, we'll be responsible for the fine. We can't control a lot of the errors that occur on the printing or submitting side. Unfortunately, that's the reality of why this change is being implemented. If you have mailer IDs and the procedures aren't being followed, mail houses and printing shops will have to start following them because these are being tracked by the post office. Before, it was kind of the Wild West where everybody did what they wanted to do. They start commingling jobs, they do anything they want, and there was no way for the post office to track them. So as this has started and they started getting better with tracking and better with identifying where these pieces are coming from, these problems need to go away or people won't be continuing to stay in business doing that. He also says he doesn't use the AccuZIP IMB that is generated when pre-sorting. Instead, we generate our own IMBs before sorting the file, and we forced AccuZIP to use the IMB that we create. We will update our software to use the new MID, but will anything else need to be changed in the setup? No, that's the short answer. And again, I can address it. I know we've emailed back and forth before, Darren. But no, you won't have to change anything else. If you're using that mailer ID from field now, it's going to continue to work. It won't require this change. It's going to be exactly the same. What will change is like your container tags, like I was alluding to earlier. If you have our mailer ID set up for container tags, you're going to want to switch that over so your mailer ID and your pallet cards and everything start using your own MID. And that will populate all the mail.dat files and everything else.
Correct. And the big thing is too, is if you're already using your own MIDs and you're not using one of AccuZIP's, the 08 or 09, then you're probably good to go. Nothing needs to change. Right. The key is if you're using an AccuZIP MID, which are just the 201108, 201109, that's when you need to sign up for your own MID or start using your own MID. So anybody else who's already using their MIDs or have multiple MIDs and all of that, you're good to go. As long as you're not using an AccuZIP MID in AccuZIP or in AccuTrace, then no changes need to be made. And I also wanted to touch on as well as some benefits. So while it might seem cumbersome to get your own MID and start using your own MID, as Eric shared in some of the beginning slides of number one, it's a necessity because that's how the post office identifies who the mail owner is and who the actual mailer is. The other positive thing is you can actually discuss this with your BMEU, but with the mailer scorecard, if you have a certain amount of consecutive months where your mailer scorecard errors are not above the threshold, you can actually qualify to be able to get your permit, your bulk mail permit fees waived. So if you're following all of the rules and you've got a good mailer scorecard, you of course want that scorecard tied to your MID because then you no longer have to pay for those bulk mail permit fees, the annual permit fees. And you would want to talk to your BMEU, that's what Postal One is directing people to. Talk to your BMEU, pull your mailer scorecard. You may actually already, if you're using your own MIDs, be eligible to not have to pay those annual permit fees. So the post office is trying to reward those that are actually getting no or below threshold mailer scorecard errors, but again, that's all tied to your MID.
Thank you for that. There's also another question from Aaron.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
This is a really good one because I get this quite a bit. On the IV PDF form for this section, please delegate origin scan tracking data for the following reply mail zips. Do we just enter our origin post office zip? No, you do not. That will only apply to you if you have a specific reply mail zip +4. So it's a unique zip +4 that's assigned to you for your reply mail pieces. So what this will do is allow the post office to delegate origin scan, like here, this piece is now received a scan being replied to you for whatever your BRM, your business reply mail, or whatever you're having done. It is not just a 5-digit zip code or your post office, because that's come up before. If you don't put a full zip +4, and that zip +4 is not a business reply zip, the post office won't do anything with it, or the IV department won't do anything with it. So if you don't use reply mail or you're not sure what that is, it doesn't apply to you.
There you go. Very good. And incidentally, Carla wanted to know what you have to, if this is going to affect the activation of AccuTrace. She's noticing that her AccuTrace is disabled. That would mean you need your AccuTrace service activated. Go ahead and email us to support@accuzip.com with that information, along with your account number and unique ID number. We'll look you up and get you activated and get your AccuTrace activated. But no, none of this will disable your AccuTrace service. Let's see. Is there anything else here?
Yeah.
I think we've got another question somebody asked. Go ahead. Go ahead, Terry.
David Reese saying, we have 4 mailer IDs that are all 9 digits long. I do the pre-sorts for our company, but we actually produce the mail at 4 different letter shops. Does it matter which of our mailer IDs we use, or do we need to use the mailer ID for each individual letter shop instead of ours, which would be cumbersome? I'm not sure I understand the question there. If your individual letter shops are all addressing and generating the mailer IDs and you're not doing it locally in a single installation, then it doesn't really matter. If you are pre-sorting this and you are going past the print labels and actually generating the IMB and you're passing that to a letter shop, then that would matter, because now you're creating an IM barcode with whatever mailer ID you have or whatever you specified in your configuration. Now, you can use that mailer ID from field option, which we were alluding to earlier, but that is a little bit, that's kind of why we want to put some method of allowing multiple mailer IDs to be used. Now, if you're just talking about each letter shop has their own mailer ID and you're not generating it all, you're pre-sorting the file and passing them the pre-sort data, this doesn't really apply. We just would put a delegation in place for all of your mailer IDs, so it doesn't matter who actually generates the IMB, we would get that scan data delegated to us.
And if you're never going to reach your threshold, if you're never going to use your entire serial range, in that 45-day period, you can just use one of those 4 mailer IDs. Just leave it at that. Yeah, I don't see why you need to add the extra 3 at any point. Just to make it easy. John Fenton wanted to know when does this need to be completed? Honestly, I would do it as soon as you can. Again, I want you to be able to avoid barcode uniqueness errors on your containers and your pieces. Those could result in fines from the U.S. Postal Service. So the sooner the better. And again, we can get you set up, usually within a half hour of, as far as once you get this form filled out and submitted. Usually a half hour later, you'll be up and running. So I would do it as quickly as possible. The longer you wait, the greater the chance you're going to end up getting barcode uniqueness errors, and the greater the chance then that you'll be paying fines. We don't want that to happen to you. Kristen, you want to elaborate on that or anything?
Sure. Yes, we don't have a definitive date. It will be sometime in 2019. That's why we're doing this, so that we can be proactive, and we don't want, of course, your operations to be affected by this transition. We don't have a hard deadline. Again, it will be sometime in 2019. Unfortunately, some of that becomes out of our control, where if the post office says, they're already telling everybody what is defined as a MID, it's supposed to identify you. So they could come and say, as of January 1st, 2019, it has to be your MID in order to get IMB discounts. So they can change anything they want to, basically. Of course, we're your voice, and that's why we're letting you know, because we have ran queries and know that several people are still using our MID. So again, I would say sometime in 2019, like Eric said, the sooner the better, and we're here to help because we don't want it to affect your operations, but it is extremely important. There's positive things about it, and again, the MID should be used correctly, which is to identify the actual mailer or mail owner.
Tim wanted to know, will this affect mail that's already sorted but not dropped yet? Well, if you've already printed it, then I would not go through and don't pre-sort again and generate new barcodes, because what you have on the printed piece, the barcodes on your printed piece will not match what you end up uploading to AccuTrace. So again, as soon as you hit this continue button, if you have not generated IM barcodes yet, as soon as you hit this continue button, it's going to generate your IM barcode information. So I would not print and then change the mailer ID and then pre-sort and then upload to AccuTrace. You'll get 0 scans. So your job is ready. Your job is printed, I assume. It's pre-sorted. It's ready. It's hasn't dropped. If it's printed, then don't touch it yet. Let's update the mailer ID before your next job. If it hasn't printed yet, then yeah, you could change the mailer ID, pre-sort again, and you're ready, and then you're ready to print and upload. Hope that wasn't too confusing. Let's see. Anything else?
Yeah, Darren Marks is asking about the limitation of sequence numbers based on the tiers you pay for. If I pay for 2 million sequence numbers, am I still limited to that amount? Yes, you are, but it's not based on the serial number from low to high. It is based on the actual record count in the jobs that you're submitting to AccuTrace. So if you skip a bunch of serials or re-pre-sort 50 times and find out that you skipped, 700,000 serial numbers or something, we're not going to be tracking all those 700,000. We're only counting the jobs that are pushed to AccuTrace that actively receive scans, and of those, you can't have more than 2 million if you're paying for 2 million.
And to clarify that, thank you, Terry, it is as soon as it has one scan, the entire job counts, because now that entire job is being queried on our server, so that's important as well. So as soon as the job has one scan, that job is considered against your tier, the entire job.
Correct. And that's a big difference to, or a big reason to prepare this and upload these jobs ahead of time, because most people won't understand that the type of load that it can put on a server if you upload a job after the mailing date, and it's got to sift through this warehouse of billions and billions of scans and match everything up. As soon as all of that processing time has to be accounted for, that job is in the warehouse and it needs to be tracked, and you cannot delete that job because now it's querying all these things. So if you upload it ahead of time and you find out there's a mistake, you can still delete your job. You can correct whatever you need to correct and re-upload it. But as soon as it has a single scan match, so if it's uploaded after the fact or you wait until after the mailing date to check it out, you cannot delete it for 45 days.
Okay, very good. Kristen, anything else? I don't know if we have any. Where should we direct questions? We have other questions. People have other questions. Where should they go?
Any questions, just like we said at the beginning of the webinar, is if you email those questions to support@accuzip.com, make sure in the subject line you reference this webinar. That way those questions can get routed appropriately. We will answer all of those questions in the order that they're received, but of course we're usually really quick to respond to those. So please feel free to email any questions, any help that you need getting set up. We're happy to do that with you as well. So just send those to support@accuzip.com with the subject line of referencing this particular webinar, and then be looking in the next. We like to give 24 or 48 hours to get the actual Q&As posted up on our webinars page. The recording should be up there by the end of the day. So again, we're here to help. And of course, you can use our live chat. That's always really effective, accuzip.com/chat, and then give us a call too at the support phone number. So any future questions, I would say email is probably your best bet, email, chat, but of course you can always pick up the phone as well.
There was one actually really good question, John, that John asked. So you have this transition period where you were using the 201-108 or 201-109 mailer ID, and that mail is out there in the mail stream, and now you're changing your mailer ID to your own personal mailer ID. Are you going to stop getting scans for that previous mailer ID, the one that we assigned to you? And no, you're going to continue to get scans for that mail. That will not end. Somebody was going to say something.
And I do need to mention one more thing, yeah, because we're starting to see the IV forms come in, and I don't think it was clarified that those forms have to have an ink signature on them. So the IV department actually requires you.
Sorry.
Yeah, the IV department requires you take this form and you sign it, physically sign it, and then scan that and send that PDF back. You cannot just type your name into it, or they will just bounce it back at us saying, hey, somebody has to sign this. And so it's very important that you have an ink signature on this form.
Oof, I screwed that one up. Sorry about that, Terry. Kristen, I should have
I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it.
No, that's fine, and that's why we're allotting this time too. I think this is great time to use too. We still have 10 more minutes, and we scheduled the duration for an hour. So chances are, if one person has the question or one person sends it in with something typed, then there's going to be, hundreds to follow. So let's take this time. To answer those questions. And Terry, you can continue to monitor the chat box, and as you see those forms come in.
Sure. Jackie asked, what if we don't have a way to scan documents? So if you don't have a phone that has apps on it, I guess one thing you could do. Oh, how can you do this? How can you, without a phone, how can you take a picture of that thing? Somehow have a buddy take a picture of that mail piece, send it on over to us. We'll look at the barcode and scan it. Yeah, fax it over. There you go.
And the funny part,
somehow get us get us a picture.
What people don't realize is the IV department, they're not exactly, the IV department's not really forward thinking on this. When they gave us the form originally, it was actually a Word document. So they said, here, everybody's got to fill out this Word document. They didn't care if you had Word or what you were doing with that document. So we tried to convert this to a PDF that at least was a little bit easier for our users to use, and we pre-filled it out with our information. But with regards to being technologically limited, whether you can scan or not, unfortunately, that's something that's got to be worked around. When you can fax it, like Kristen said, but the post office and the IV department will not accept it. They will not process it without an ink signature. So that is something that, the good news is if it's a single mailer ID, you only got to figure it out once. So, until you do it once per mailer ID, you don't have to keep doing this for, a billion things. So you just want to make sure that you find some way to scan and get that document signed, or else the IV department will do nothing with it. They will just throw it back at me.
There we go. And oh, that didn't work out. I'm going to get back to that. For those who missed where to get this form, totally missed that question. I totally blew that question. But anyway, to find out where to get the form, just go to this page. Go to accuzip.com/AccuTrace/IV.pdf. There you are. Thanks, Kristen. Okay, let's see. Did we miss any? I don't know.
I don't see anything else.
Yeah, I think we covered everybody.
Yeah.
We covered everybody's questions. That's pretty amazing. We may be the first webinar ever to cover everybody's questions. Anyway.
Okay.
Because we have thousands of people in here. Okay. You want to wrap up then? Oh, where do you fax the page to?
Yes. I put the 877 number in there. I'll put it in here again real quick here. If you go to accuzip.com/contact, but let me send you that toll-free fax number too. So I'll put that in the GoToMeeting chat window. There you are.
There we go.
877-839-6531, or email to IV, which stands for Inform Visibility, at AccuZIP.com. Any questions regarding we're trying to just receive the forms to the IV. That way we can delegate and properly do time management with those and get those turned around as quickly as possible. So if it's questions related to support or AccuTrace or setup or filling out the form, anything like that, is probably best, Terry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to send those to support@AccuZIP.com, reference this webinar or the subject line of what it's in regards to.
Absolutely.
Okay,
all right.
Well, with that said, it looks like everyone's probably getting back to business. Again, thank you all for your time. I know it's a lot to ask. Again, we're trying to be proactive and get this done before it actually becomes mandated. So the sooner the better. And if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of us. So thank you again, everyone. Happy Tuesday and have a great rest of your day. And thank you, Eric and Terry. Great job.
You're welcome. My pleasure. On behalf of Terry.
Thank you all.
Goodbye, everybody.
It's kind of fun. I mean, when we can talk about stuff like this, is awesome.
It is. I agree. Goodbye, AccuZIP users.